Brian and I realized that we have two vastly different ways of going about creating future visions for each other. And one is slightly, I would just stereotypically call more feminine or intuitive, which is the way I do it. And one of them is a little bit more logical and mental, the way that Brian does it. So we're going to actually tell you how we each do it and then let you do it in the way that feels most natural to you. So this part is kind of the same for both. You start by writing down the main complaint that you have. And it's okay if it doesn't sound accountable yet, it doesn't seem like a positive vision. You're really just grabbing the complaint as it exists in you in this unresolved issue. All right, so you've got the complaint. It's likely the thing you told your partner to say when you were opening your ears, when you gave them that phrase and you were having to listen with your whole body. So then you have the complaint. And then this is what I do, and I found it really enlightening, is that I picture my partner in the process of doing the very thing that you're complaining about. So go to the moment in time where that was the trigger point for you, where they were doing the behavior that they were doing. If there are multiple moments, pick the one that has the most emotional content for you. Maybe they did a couple different things, but there was a kind of a peak moment of your complaint, like, it's that, right? So you have the visual of it. And so create that as a picture in your mind. And if you're in the picture, you're going to actually, once you've got it, fade yourself out of the picture so that now it's only them. So you can only see your partner. So you're going to fade all of that out. So now it's just them in that moment in time that created your trigger. And so then you visualize them on their own evolutionary timeline. So I see them in the image, and then I see like a line going off and to the right. And then I literally take my consciousness and travel down the timeline to a future version of them for whom this situation is no problem, right? So it's not a future version. There's infinite future versions of them. One of them is a version of them where this issue is completely transcended. And so you're traveling across that timeline, and then you're going to commune with their future self. And so notice what's different. When you see that future version of them, you're going to make eye contact. You're going to look at that future version and write down what you notice, describing only the future self that you experience, not comparing them to the partner's future self, but what do you see in this future version of them? So you faded you out. It's really important that your future visions aren't about you and getting them to make you feel better. It's literally, I'm going to pop out of me as this being about me at all. I'm going to fade me out, in fact. I don't even exist in this equation. I'm just going to go on to your future where you have a version of you that doesn't have this issue. And I'm going to commune and bring you back what I saw in my vision. So that's the way I create future visions when I'm creating them for Brian.
The more intuitive you are, the more information you get from your body, the more her version is going to work for you. And the more logical you are, where you more verbal, the more you piece together things like an argument, the more this might work for you. But just do whatever works for you is the idea. So it's a series of questions. It starts with, what is the partner's intended positive outcome for their behavior? It's based on the NLP premise that all behavior has an intended positive outcome. What is that intended positive outcome? And what values do they seem to be defending through their actions? So he cheated on me or she cheated on me. You think, well, there are no values that they're defending. It's just wrong to do that. It's one perspective. But they might be defending the value of freedom or autonomy or sexual expression.
Or full embodied sexual expression.
Exactly.
Right? That could be the value.
Every action, even if you judge it as wrong, is defending a positive value. It may be not the best way to do that, or it may be a way to do that has unfortunate consequences that you may even exceed the benefit of, all of that's a separate thing. At the core, there's a value. And to start to get the future version, you want to understand what that value is so that you can imagine someone who has a lot of that value in their life effortlessly without all of the negative consequences. So the next question is, what are the main costs they're paying for themselves? And not what you experience, not the costs you experience, but the costs they experience. So in our demo, I was talking about a future version of Jennifer. I wasn't saying like this different way of handling handoffs is going to feel a lot better because then you won't be mad at me. It wasn't about me and what was going to be better for me. It was about her being able to have a higher percentage of the time when she hands things off to get satisfaction, which is what she wants. Because right now, the costs she's experiencing, from my perspective, is that the way she's doing it causes her to be disappointed more often. And I know she wants to be disappointed less often, having nothing to do with me. So that's number 2, is the costs. Number 3, what kind of a person would be able to get that outcome and embody those values without having to pay the costs? And make sure you describe to someone who would either resolve that complaint or never incur your complaint. So how does someone, back to the cheating example, how does someone embody full self-expression, embody the value of freedom fully, embody the value of autonomy fully, but without the emotional cost of hurting someone's feelings and breaking agreements and damaging their integrity? How does someone do that? And that question will start to paint a picture in your mind. Like, imagine someone who can do that. Imagine someone who embodies that value but doesn't pay that cost. Like, what is that kind of a person? And then you can start to describe, and that becomes your vision. If they're making any concessions, this is question number 4, like settling for something that's not quite what they want, what kind of a person would be able to get what they want most? So oftentimes when people do quote-unquote bad behavior, that bad behavior is because they've decided they can't get what they really want. Someone doesn't want to steal. They want to provide value in the world and be, rewarded with lots of money. But if they decide they can't be rewarded with lots of money for providing value in the world, they resort to a second choice called stealing. So that's a second choice. That's settling. If there's any kind of settling, what's that first choice that's even better? And then imagine a version that has that. Then you want to combine all the answers to create this whole picture of this future version and describe what the future version thinks, believes, says, and does. 4 things. Like, how does the future person think? What are the beliefs they have? What are the kinds of things they say? And then what are their actions? What do they do? And that starts to give you a full picture of this future version. And then you write it down and you ask yourself, would your partner admire the person you describe? And sometimes at the first, the answer is no. Oh, I've created my future version and put their name on it. Whoops. It's got to be something that based on her value set or his value set that they admire. And so you just reread it through that lens and then rewrite it and emphasize the things that your partner might admire most about this future version. Jennifer's vision for me had to do with this powerful presence that relaxed the system and relaxed women and their sexuality. These are all things that are exciting for me. It's not because that would make her marriage better. It's because she knows that just my identity is excited by that. Right? So she included that in her version for me. And then remove any trace of your complaint, just so you're rewriting it. And then the final step is to read what you've written to someone else other than your partner and ask them for feedback and ask them, does this vision seem inspiring? Has all the complaint been removed? And you just keep working until the answer is yes, and then you have a final version. So that's more the logical steps versus the intuitive process that Jennifer described. And I would really recommend whichever feels best, do that one or do both and see what happens.
Yes, sometimes because I find some of his questions really enlightening, I'll commune with the future self and ask it some of those questions, right? So there's like a little bit of a merging that can happen, but it's up to whatever feels like a natural way to source that vision such that the final product is at the end what they think, what they believe, feels like something that is on their line of development and not about you.
Your vision of yourself is limited all the time by your foundational beliefs about what's possible for you, which are rooted in lies. Because everything that you believe about yourself that's not infinite is not true. But we don't relate to ourselves as intimate. Nobody in this room does. I don't. So a partner that loves you is going to have an expanded view, always. It does mean you have to trust your partner a lot with your life, really. And I have, when I got this piece, I started to have a lot more respect for people who fear intimacy and commitment, because it's actually appropriate to fear intimacy and commitment. Because whether you do this explicitly or not, the relationship will demand it of you. Because if you have divergent views of if she thinks I should be in one direction and I think I should be another, every area in our life that is an expression of the difference will be a fight, will be a point of contention, will be low vibration, will be me sacrificing myself to be with her or her like settling to be with me. That will grow and grow and grow and grow until either we just anesthetize ourselves with movies and alcohol and drugs and affairs and television and just try and numb out so we don't feel the difference, or until it destroys the relationship. So in my view, an evolutionary partnership is one where you do hitch your wagon to the vision of your partner. And whether you do that deliberately or not, all of the little niggles and the nags and the complaints are all going to fall out of that difference. And you're either going to dance around them or you're going to address them directly. It's also why Jennifer and I are quite agnostic when it comes to the sexual structure of your relationship, whether it be monogamy or non-monogamy, open relationship. And there are as many different varieties of those kinds of choices as there are couples. And we're totally open to different ones working. However, we do believe that there is a primacy to the dyadic leadership, that there is a primary partnership, because I can really only surrender to one vision of me, and it's Jennifer's. So any other relationship might inform that and might inform her, Right,
but if they're at odds,
then I'm choosing Jennifer's. So if I have another relationship, or if my mom or whatever it is, whoever, my brother or my business partner says, hey, Brian, I really think you should be this different way, I can take that to Jennifer and say, oh my God, I heard this really inspiring thing. My mom, brother, partner, whatever it was, told me that I could do this change and that would be better. And then she could go, God, that's really inspiring. I'm going to now update my vision for you. Or she could say, I actually think that you're greater than that even. I actually think that that feedback came from compensation of a limitation or of an ego thing, and your future is even better. And she could explain why that could be. If Jennifer describes a part of my future which doesn't feel right to me, I can say, wow, help me. That doesn't feel right. And why do you think it doesn't feel right to me? What is it about it that's not landing? I trust her to know the difference between her insecurity and trying to control me and a true vision for me. And if she might say, you know what, I think when I said that, I was trying to control you, or I was like a little bit insecure. I think maybe a better way of saying it is this other thing. Or she might say, well, I think it doesn't feel right to you because you just don't believe you can do it. And I know that you can.
We recommend that when you're in a relationship, you're either all in or not. So even if they're not like your life partner forever, while you're in it, you're all in with that person to explore what there is to explore, to get every ounce of the gems that you can harvest from that particular relationship within the cycle that would be natural for that relationship. So not every relationship cycle time is lifelong. Some people have relationship cycles that are appropriate to begin and end, in months or years or decades, right? So given that you're in the relationship, be in it with each other to learn what your partner's future vision is for you at this time. And when that vision feels like it's not yours anymore and it's not growing with you, that will actually signal for you both that it's time to close the relationship, go to an end, and be on the next level of your journey. Now, you have at that moment an opportunity for you to each become new versions of each other with new visions. We have revised our visions for each other dozens of times without breaking up. You have that option. If you're just dating, think about the energy and fire and richness in your life if you say, hey, let's play this game. I don't know. We're new. We've only been seeing each other for a few weeks, but I actually want to know what do you see for me and what you already know. Like, I want to play this game that we share with each other what we see, because I think you have a different perspective on the universe and on me that I don't have, because that's true of all humans. We all have a different perspective on the universe. So I'm going to want to, with Brian, we shared future visions for each other within a few weeks of meeting each other.
I was not at all clear that I was marriage material. I was in the middle of a divorce.
Yeah, he
I
was still getting
like,
divorced, and I wasn't even sure I was attracted to Brian.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know.
But the vision piece was super clear.
Yeah.
And fun, and actually
I'll
and
play that
playful,
game.
and since we're talking about direction, what direction am I headed? I was like, yeah, I'll do this direction for now. This sounds fun. I'm totally bought into that vision, and we'll see how that goes. So it didn't have to be a commitment of longevity in order to be a full commitment to the direction.
Yeah, it's not the end point; it's the direction. So it's easy actually to commit to a direction if you're not committing to the end point, because that end point's going to shift and change, sometimes even daily, at least monthly. We recheck in with each other about our visions once a year, and at that point, we either re-up or we shift. This is how I develop myself into the being that I am here right now, is that at all times I'm in an existential consideration. And that my consideration is always revolved around the piece of the vision that is most salient, that's most up for me. So for me, there'll be a piece of the larger vision that is the one I'm going to work on. That's a smaller piece of something bigger, but I'm going to spend like at least a month or so on this smaller piece because I know that if I can work on this piece, it'll make all the rest of the pieces easier. So if I'm going to become this incredible spiritual teacher in the world, he sees me as becoming this woman. So I don't go to work like, oh, be spiritual teacher. Brian says this is where I'm going, so there I am. I go, oh, I need to work on how often am I in the realm of complaint and frustration and disappointment. Because the vision of a spiritual woman that is able to help people transcend the negativity that's holding them back from their evolution is not experiencing, let's say, complaint at the frequency I am. So then I work on the piece, and I have what I call a consideration on who would I be to create the reality I want without using complaint as a means of connection. So that'll be my consideration, and for a month or two, I'll be in that until I notice I'm not using that in order to connect. The process, that consideration process, is written down so that it might sound abstract and large, but there's a way to do a consideration. And I recommend all of you have one running at all times. So it's your gym for your own evolution, is your considerations that are going on all the time.